We are back to the original number of 3 questions, but I just would like to make a small remark. Please, no applause. Mr. Deedat doesn't need it, and I know it is a spontaneous expression on your part, but still try to control yourselves with applause. Thank you.
I thank you for your previous answer, which I will meditate. Now my second question is of, I would say, an ethical nature. It's connected with the previous one. In the meantime, before the end of history, which we talked about before, we live in history, and we have to deal with human defects or sins which are very old, such as selfishness or deceit. And we see in particular, in the present stage of history which we live in, some problems which are typical of our times, problems of the difference of income between men and nations, problems of the... To take an example, today all over the news, the press and the TV, I suppose, in Geneva and probably much of the world, you have this story, the event of the decrease of the price of coffee. The consequences of phenomena of that kind, we know. Those millions of people who are very poor will see their income decrease, and while those who are richer won't have lesser income. And we have problems, well, this is an example. We have problems like this we see very often, especially in the city where we live. We see the problem of the treatment of foreigners, of strangers, and expulsion of people of certain nationalities and so on. And we see those problems of that kind every day, in the newspapers. And my question is, you gave us before examples of practical wisdom of Islam and of the Qur'an, especially in matters of matrimony, divorce and remarriage. My question is, do we find in the Holy Qur'an or in Islamic theology teachings of practical wisdom to face those problems which are typical of the world in which we live in this generation? Could you give us a few examples?
Really something specific to work upon.
The price of coffee.
Another lecture on economics.
All right. There is a danger. Maybe I'm going to specify my question a little bit. One of the examples I took was the price of coffee. It so happens that in Christian theology, in the theology of the Middle Ages, and I'm going to take the example of Thomas Aquinas, you have long dissertations about the fixing of just prices. And in the European Middle Ages, that had a certain reality. The prices of bread and so on were fixed according to certain ethical norms. But it seems that it's much more absent in the 20th century, especially in the relationships between nations, rich nations and poor nations. For instance, in a matter which I mentioned before, probably one will be able to read dozens of newspapers articles about the decrease of the price of coffee and its sad consequences, but probably without any ethical or theological reference. Whereas Christian theology actually is full of those references, but they are just not quoted. They are just not quoted. So my question, maybe I will repeat it in a way that's less clear now. Could you give us maybe 1 or 2 examples of the practical wisdom of the Holy Qur'an and possibly Islamic theology facing problems which are typical of the days in which we live? Thank you very much.
You see, I am not an economist, nor am I a theologian. I am a person who have been talking about religion. I will become a talker, a lecturer. in comparative religion. But I might, hazard a guess in telling that, look, the Islamic system, you see, it gives us certain basic rules on which to fix prices. For example, say at the end of the month of fasting, Ramadan, we give a certain charity called fitra. That is the term that's applied, fitra. And this fitra, we calculate, I think, certain weight of wheat. Is it? Can anybody give it to me? What weight is that?
Silver francs.
Right. No, that's not in money, in weight of wheat.
2.5.
Right. So 2.5 kilo of wheat. So whatever the price ruling at the time, suppose you don't have to go and look for wheat, because the man might not need wheat, he might need rice. He prefers rice to wheat. But we take the value of that wheat, 2.5 kilo, and give it to the poor. So a price is fixed. Whether now that wheat is 50 francs, 2.5 kilo, or whether it is 5 francs, or whether it is 500 francs, whatever the price goes up, that is the compulsory charity each and every Muslim must give at the end of the month of fasting. So here it is. And in the early Muslim empire, if you had a bag of wheat in Timbuktu, and you left that bag of wheat there, so look, you can sell, and you have your business in China, I will get a bag of wheat there. That's how it worked. And the same thing was suggested, I think, by Iran to the West. It says, look, let us fix the price of oil. On the basis, let's come to an agreement. Oil today, what is it worth? Yes, it's $30, $20, whatever it is. How many loaves of bread can we buy in Germany for that? Now that's fixed now. How many loaves can we buy in England? How many loaves can we get for that $20 today? How many can we get in Geneva for that $20? So that is fixed. So if your price of bread goes up, the price of my oil goes up, in keeping with that. But now it doesn't suit the West. You see, they're playing games. How they can, drop this fellow by, these cartels and whatnot. Now this is for the economists, to deal with. But this is the simple principle laid down by Islam, and it is more practical than Thomas Aquinas, all these dissertations that he has written, which nowhere is the first time in my life. I'm 70-year-old, I hear about Aquinas having written it. No Christian worth the name has ever spoken about it in 70 years of my living. This is how good it is. Aquinas. These are the only scholars in the universities, they know about Aquinas and what he did and what he said, but no Christian knows about it either. Said, please.
Auzubillah min shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. There's something which is beating my mind, and is that the Bible is used by Christians. And this very book has given birth to so many churches. And I remember when I was a Christian before, I was a presbyter because my parents are like that. And later I deserted and then joined Jehovah's Witness. Now, what we used to do is that we take the Bible, go back to my colleagues who are presbyters. Then we use the same Bible to prove them wrong, that their principles are wrong. And so, but I can see that Brother Deedat spent much of his time on the Bible. And I don't know if you advise me to do the same thing. Because I feel that my common sense tells me that if the Bible, like the Holy Quran, all Muslims, anytime they are about to pray, at least everybody have to say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.